Hey friend, it's Avi from JustWriteMusic.com. Welcome to another video aimed at helping you find that prolific music creator inside of you and stay sane as an artist. Today, I want to give you a stupid, simple way to help you figure out the notes of any chord using just your fingers. Combined with a basic knowledge of scales, half steps, and whole steps, you can figure out any chord that any song will throw at you. Before we get into the weeds, if you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button and maybe even hit the bell to be notified when more videos are coming out. If you're just beginning your musical journey or don't have much music education, chords may feel pretty mysterious to you. They're made of notes, but how are they built and how do you know which notes? There's actually a pretty simple formula to this. It just takes some time and practice to apply and start to feel comfortable with it. So just like everything else in life, cool, no big deal. So let's start with whole steps and half steps. A step is the smallest difference that one note can move to another note. One whole step equals two half steps. Okay, pretty straightforward so far. Cool. Now when we're moving a whole step, we are usually moving from one letter name to another letter name. Oh, there are a couple of exceptions to this. E natural and F natural are both a half step apart, as is B and C natural. This is very important to remember. Apart from those two examples, when we're moving a half step, we're usually making a note sharp or flat, or making a sharp or flat note a natural note. Like going up from C to C sharp. Sharp and flat notes are also called accidentals. Rude, right? Based on the instrument that you play or know how to play, whole steps and half steps will be shown or utilized in different ways. On piano, going a half step usually means going from a white key to a black key, or a black key to a white key. Except for B and C and E and F, it's very important to remember. If you look closely at a piano, there's no black key in between B and C and E and F. When moving a whole step on the piano at least, we're usually moving from a white key to a white key, or going from a black key to a black key. On guitar, each fret represents one half step. If we're going from 5 to 6 here, that's just going to be a half step. In this case, on the low E string, it would be going from A to B flat. Pretty simple, but unlike the piano, we don't get that really awesome visual aid with the different colors. But now that we have a solid foundation with half steps and whole steps, it's time to talk about the major and minor scales. Of all the scales, these are by far the most popular, particularly in the music that we hear today. The major scale is often used as the default scale, particularly when talking about it in relation to other scales. For example, we'd talk about the 6th scale degree in minor as a flat 6. This is because it's a half step below where it would be in a major scale, but it's still functioning the same within the scale. So it's still a 6, but it's a half step down. So it's a flat 6. Any scale, major, minor, or otherwise, yeah, there are more, has a unique whole step and half step pattern that constitutes it. Constitutes is not a word. Has a unique pattern that can be expressed using whole steps and half steps. All the scales we're talking about have 7 steps to them, with the 8th step being the octave, the same pitch as the starting pitch or the root register above. Now a scale degree, really quick, just more terms to throw at you. A scale degree is a number that we associate with a note in the scale. So 1 would be the first note in a scale, 2 would be the second, and so on like that. The whole step, half step pattern for a major scale is whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step. And the minor scale pattern is whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step. Now these patterns are useful, particularly when we're first learning this stuff, because it allows us to sort of understand how scales are created, starting from any given note. This makes it a little bit easier to navigate when we need a sharp note or a flat note or a natural note. It all depends on the note that we're starting on. When you start a scale from a certain note, let's say A, any melody or harmony you make from that scale is in the key of A. But when learning theory concepts, it's always easiest to use C major because there's no sharps or flats. Let's build that now. We're going to use our fingers, just like the video title says. So we're starting on C, and the first thing we need to do is go a whole step, so that's going to be moving from C to D. Cool. We got a whole step. We need another whole step, that's going to be from D to E. Cool. All right. Now we need whole step, half step. We need a half step. Oh, but there's a natural half step between E and F, right? That's right. That's where this comes in. Remember how I kept saying it was important, right? That's our half step. Okay, now we need a whole step up from there. That was the next one. So that's going to be a G. And then we need another whole step after that. That's going to be a B. and then a half step up from that. That was our last step in the formula, going back up to C, because again, that natural half step between B and C. Do you guys remember what that was? What I said about that just then? It's important. Now we can also express these letters and pitches in scale degrees, like we just introduced before with like the other concept that I threw at you that kind of came out of nowhere. Now it's important. We can call C1, D2, E3, that type of thing. We have number systems involved, number systems on number systems. Now when we're talking about chords, and especially when we're talking about the chord built off the first scale degree, usually we'll refer to that as the tonic. The tonic is the chord built off of the first scale degree in any key. Now you also may have heard people use the word root a lot when talking about chords. The root refers to the letter name pitch given to a chord. So the root of a G chord is G, no matter what key we're in. Now let's try building that minor scale that we were talking about before. We've been dealing with the major scale for quite a bit now, but let's start talking about the minor scale. So but we're gonna keep C. We're gonna see how this is different. So here we go. C. Okay, we're starting, but we need a whole step first. C to D. We got that. That's the same so far. Cool. But next we need a half step, whole step, half step. So D, half step up from D. We have to change the letter name, but it's not an E natural, right? Because the natural half steps are only between E and F and B and C, because that's important to remember. So that has to be a half step below E. That has to be an E flat. Okay, so we have our third. That's an E flat. C, D, E flat. Okay, then we had a whole step. So that has to be an F, right? We're going a whole step up from an E flat, and there's that natural half step between E and F. So that's now a whole step. I know it seems like I'm going over this a lot, but if this is new to you, this needs to be gone over a lot. So you're welcome. We were at F, right? Okay, so we need another whole step after F. That's gonna bring us to G. And after G, after this next whole step, we need a half step, because we went whole step, half step. We're going up from G, not from B, which would be a natural half step. So that means it's the same thing with that E, right? It has to be a half step below an A natural. So since it's below, we're gonna call that an A flat. Okay, that's our flat six there. But we're going up another whole step from our flat six, from A flat, so that has to be B flat. And then from B flat, we have another whole step, B flat to C. See how we got there? It's not as hard as it seems. It really isn't. We're just taking this formula and building it up from any note. That's all we're doing. Just going one step at a time. I'm sorry. The key takeaway here is that we started from the same pitch, but we used a different formula and we got a couple of different notes out of it. Namely, we got an E flat, an A flat, and a B flat, or respectively a flat 3, a flat 6, and a flat 7. This really changes the character of the home chord and the key. Let's reinforce this. Let's build a major scale this time, going back to our major scale, but not from C. Let's build a major scale from A. We were talking about A last time. Let's bring A back. Cool. We're starting from A, building a major scale. So we need to go a whole step up from A. We've done that before. That's a B. Very cool. Very cool. Whole step, though, from B. Well, you guys remember there's that natural half step between B and C. So if we need to go a whole step up, it still has to be a kind of C because it's the 3. So that has to be a C sharp because we're raising it. We're going further. We're going a half step up from C natural. So that's A, B, C sharp. Cool. C sharp. Whole step, whole step. Now we have to do a half step, C sharp. Okay, half step up from C sharp. That's D. So that's our 4. D, now a whole step up from D would be E. Very cool. We need another whole step now. A whole step up from E, but an F natural is a half step, right? Natural half step between E and F. So that's E to F sharp. Okay, that would be our 6. Then we need a whole step again from that F sharp, which would bring us to G sharp. This would be fret 4 and fret 6 on the low E string of a guitar. A half step is the last move in a major scale, so that G sharp is going to bring us right back to A. Okay, cool. See, really not that hard when we think about it. We just have a couple of parameters. Depending on where we're starting from, we adjust as necessary. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer your questions in the comments section down below. But to be really clear, just to review, that E, we went up a whole step from that E, so we had to do an F sharp. And we had to go a whole step up from that B, so we had to do a C sharp because of the, right, I can't hear you because it's the before place time, because of the natural half steps between E and F and B and C. All right, that's actually the hard part. We're done with the hard part now. You can kind of figure out any scale starting from any note once you have this stuff really down and start to feel comfortable with it. And if you can find any scale from any note, you can figure out any chord in any key. All we have to do is pull all this together and start building triads. A triad is a 3-note chord. Get it? Try. 3. I'm a genius. Now, when you're learning music theory or in a theory class or whatever, you learn that we use triads to start building basic chords. So 1 is the root of the chord. So if we're starting on C, then C is the root, C is 1. All the same thing. Multiple names for the same thing. So once we find a root, all we need to do is find its third and its fifth. These numbers refer to intervals, and intervals are a fantastically useful way of measuring the distance between notes. In fact, I made a video on it. Go watch it. Though it's before the Just Right Music days. I'm still going under musical.engineering in that video, so maybe I'll remake that video. I don't know. Let me know what you think about that down in the you-know-what. Now, intervals can be a little bit tricky at first. We just got down one measurement system and another number system down. We don't really want to add too much going on. I still think you should learn intervals. I do think that. You go learn intervals. But we don't necessarily need to in order to start getting up and running with building chords and triads and all that fun stuff. So that's kind of the whole conceit of this video. I'm going to share with you guys a little thing that I picked up in music school. Not to like boast about it like I'm some kind of genius. This is very simple, and I guarantee you that if you went to music school, you probably figured this out too. But if you went to music school, you really shouldn't be watching this for educational purposes. It's more of like a colleague watching another colleague thing, which I get. And hello, how you doing? Let me know how I'm doing. Cool. So we're going to use the information that we already learned. Remember how we had whole steps and half steps? Cool. We took those whole steps and half steps, we took those scales, and we assigned each note in the scale a scale degree, a number. Awesome. Still with me. Love it. Love it. So all we need to do to build a triad is take the note that we're starting on, we're going to call that 1, and find the third and the fifth of that number. We're just going to use scale degrees for it because they are going to bring us to the same notes. The basic thing here is just find the odd numbers, right? That's the whole thing. Just find the odd numbers, scale degrees, starting from a certain pitch. That's how you build chords. Any chord, you can build any chord like this. So let's take C, let's start really, really easy. C, we're gonna build a C major chord. All right, a C major scale will just be C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Okay, we just need 1, 3, and 5. C, skipping D, because that's 2. We need 3, that's E. Skipping 4, because that's F, and then keeping G, because that's 5. So C, E, G, C major chord, C major triad, right there. That's it. Odd numbers. Right, that's easy. So what about chords that aren't the tonic of a key? Simple, just use the root of the chord as 1. The only thing to be really careful of here is to make sure that you're retaining the same sharped and flatted notes from the key that you're actually in. So for example, let's build an F chord in the key of C minor. So F is our root. Cool, that's 1. We're gonna skip G because that's our 2. Going to A, that's our 3. Awesome, that's A. And we're skipping B because that's our 4 and going to go to C. That's our 5. Okay, F, A, C. That's how you spell any F triad. Hold on though. If you remember from before, our C minor scale had a couple of flat notes in there. It had a flat A. So that means that if we're building an F chord in C minor, we have to include that A flat. That means this would be an F, A flat, C. And that A flat, so a half step below, that makes it an F minor chord. The difference between a major and minor chord is just a half step in the third specifically. In a minor chord, the third is always going to be a half step lower than in its parallel or corresponding major chord. So for example, A minor, A, C, E. That's how you spell an A minor triad. A major triad would be A, C sharp, E. Remember, because when we built that major scale off of A, our third scale degree, we needed a whole step up from B because B was 2. That's why a major triad has a C sharp in it. To find this really quickly, all you have to do is remember the first 2 or 3 steps, honestly. So C to D, whole step, okay? D to E, whole step, just the first 2 moves. Now, what if we're doing C minor? C to D, that's our whole step. D to E flat, half step. That's all you need to remember. Don't need to remember the intervals, don't need to think about intervals, just remember those 2 little things. That's it. Just for the hell of it, let's build 2 more chords, just to really drive this stuff home. Let's build an A triad in the key of C. Starting with our 1, that's A, okay, that's 1, okay. B would be 2, so we're not taking that. C would be 3. Awesome. We did just do this. All right. C would be 3. That means D would be 4. We don't need that. And E would be 5. Okay. We have our 1, 3, 5. A, C, E. Odd numbers. That's all we have to remember. Every other note. Boom. Just your fingers. And we're going from that A to that B is a whole step, and B to that C is B to C natural, B natural, C natural is a half step, natural half step, so that makes it an A minor triad. Let's try something harder. Let's build a B major triad in the same key. So we already know the quality of the chord. We're building a B major triad because we're doing it in the B major key. So we already have that down. We just need to use our major scale formula to build our triad on 1, 3, and 5. So we're starting on B. Okay, so we've always got a whole step, no matter what, no whether it's major or minor. So we're on a B, which means it needs to be C sharp. That needs to be our 2. Okay, but we don't need to. All right, but we're going another whole step up. We're trying to build a B major. So a whole step up from C sharp is D sharp. Okay, cool. We have our 3, B, D sharp. And then we're going a half step up from that. That would be our E, because whole step, half step, but then we need another whole step to get to our 5, and that would be our F sharp. So B, D sharp, F sharp. That's how you spell a B major triad. Thanks to our step formula, we know exactly which notes should be sharp and which notes should not be sharp. We didn't even need to memorize the entire formula in order to build these chords, which is the entire point of this video, is to just be able to build chords no matter what, just with your fingers. Being able to build chords and figure out what notes are in a chord is an integral step to becoming a solid songwriter. While we can certainly do everything by ear with no theory knowledge at all, when we get to the details of actually writing melody and harmony, knowing the notes in your key or what key you're in and the notes that the chords you're using consist of are really important to know. They're tremendously helpful. With just a little bit of practice and review, this little shortcut that I taught you can get you to your answers really quickly. I used this method when I was first building chords in music school as a shorthand, and it works. It helped a ton. Now that you know how to build any major and minor triad, it's time to write some melodies on top of them. That's why I want to tell you about my free guide, 7 Ways to Write a More Effective Melody. These tips are super versatile and can be used on any melody in any genre. Stop agonizing over what your melody needs and just grab a free copy of this thing so you have these proven tools to help. Head to justwritemusic.com. There's a link in the doobly-doo. That's all for this video. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I'm Avi from justwritemusic.com, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.